Ancient builders left behind stone structures that modern engineering still cannot fully explain. These are not legends, but real monuments standing silent across the globe, and they hide secrets that challenge everything we think we know about the past. By the end of this journey, you will understand the most baffling architectural puzzles that archaeologists are still trying to solve. We will explore how stones were cut with laser-like precision thousands of years ago, and how entire cities were planned with knowledge that seems to have vanished. What does it truly mean when the work of our ancestors defies our own technology? High in the Bolivian Andes, the ruins of Puma Punku lie scattered like a giant's forgotten toy box. What remains are not simple rocks, but andesite and red sandstone blocks shattered by some immense, unknown force. Each surviving piece is a masterpiece of stonework. The surfaces are flawlessly smooth, with razor-sharp edges and perfectly planar faces that look as if they were cut by a modern diamond saw. But the true marvel is in the details. Many blocks feature complex geometric patterns, with precise notches and T-shaped slots cut deep into the incredibly hard stone. These are not random decorations. They are part of an intricate interlocking system, designed to fit together with other blocks using a kind of ancient Stone Age mortise and tenon joinery. The most famous of these are the H blocks, which look like colossal, angular puzzle pieces. The consistency of these cuts is baffling. Each repeating shape is identical to the next, with a level of precision that suggests the use of templates or a standardized measuring system. How could a civilization, using only stone and copper tools, achieve such machine-like perfection on a rock as tough as andesite? Geologists who have examined the stones note a conspicuous absence of the erratic chisel marks or rough pounding you would expect from primitive tools. Instead, the clean cuts and smooth surfaces imply a technique, and perhaps a technology, that has been completely lost to time. The builders possessed a sophisticated knowledge of geometry and structural engineering, possibly even employing prefabrication methods where blocks were shaped off-site to exact specifications before being assembled. Then, just as mysteriously as they were built, the structures were abandoned, leaving behind a field of shattered precision that refuses to give up its secrets. This level of inexplicable craftsmanship is not an isolated case, but a theme that echoes across the world, leading us to another continent and an even grander scale of construction. Just a short distance from the intricate puzzle of Puma Punku, another monumental mystery rises from the earth. The fortress of Sacsayhuamán stands guard over the city of Cusco, Peru, a breathtaking display of power and precision carved directly into the mountainside. Its most famous feature is a series of 3 zigzagging walls, built from colossal blocks of limestone that defy belief. Some of these stones are titans, weighing as much as 200 tons each, the equivalent of a small commercial airliner. Yet their immense size is not the most baffling aspect. It is the way they fit together. The masonry here is a masterclass in polygonal construction. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon with multiple sides and angles, shaped to lock perfectly with every stone it touches above, below, and to the sides. The joints are so impossibly tight that for centuries people have said you cannot even slip a single piece of paper or the blade of a razor between them. No mortar was used. The strength comes purely from the genius of the fit. This creates a structure of incredible stability, one that has withstood countless powerful earthquakes that have toppled modern buildings all around it. The Incas designed with the Earth's tremors in mind, engineering a wall that could sway and settle without collapsing. But how did they achieve this? the mystery only deepens when you consider the logistics. How did a civilization without the wheel, without iron, and without draft animals like horses or oxen transport these 200-ton stones from quarries miles away? How did they then lift them thousands of feet up a steep mountain and maneuver them into positions of such perfect alignment? Some researchers, like Dr. Jean-Pierre Protzen, have theorized that stonemasons painstakingly pounded the rocks into shape with harder stones, then used earthen ramps and ropes made from leather and plant fibers to move them. Yet even these careful theories are largely educated guesses, and the sheer scale and speed of the construction remains largely unexplained. The walls of Sacsayhuamán are not just a fortress, they are a permanent question, challenging our assumptions about the limits of human ingenuity and the tools our ancestors truly had at their disposal. The sheer scale of Sacsayhuamán makes its construction seem like a collective miracle, a feat only possible for an entire empire. But what if a single person could achieve the impossible? In the sweltering heat of Florida, a lone man performed a modern act of magic with stone. Edward Ļģekalnis, a Latvian immigrant who stood just 5 feet tall and weighed barely 100 pounds, spent 28 years single-handedly building Coral Castle. He quarried, carved, and arranged over 1,000 tons of oolite limestone, a form of coral rock, into an elaborate complex of sculptures, walls, and furniture. The largest stones weigh an astounding 28 tons, heavier than a full-sized school bus, and he did most of this work under the cover of night, shrouding his methods in complete secrecy. When curious neighbors asked how he managed it, he would only offer a cryptic smile, saying he understood the laws of weight and leverage and had rediscovered the building secrets of the ancient pyramids. He claimed to have seen the strings of the universe, how the planets were held in place, and applied that knowledge to his stones. The tools he was known to possess were primitive, little more than chains, pulleys, and metal tripods found in old car junkyards. With such basic equipment, how could one man lift and position multi-ton blocks with such hair-raising precision? The most famous example is a massive 9-ton stone gate, perfectly balanced on a simple truck axle. For decades, this gate could be opened with the push of a single finger, swinging smoothly despite its immense weight, a feat of balance that modern engineers struggled to replicate. When the gate eventually seized up in the 1980s, a team of technicians needed a 20-ton crane and 5 hours of work to lift it off its hinges. They discovered that Ļģekalnis had drilled a nearly perfect cone-shaped hole through the center of the stone, balancing it on a metal rod with almost no friction. The precision was so exact, the engineering so elegant, it defied all expectations. Skeptics propose he must have used ingenious block and tackle systems, while others, captivated by his own mysterious words, wonder if he had somehow harnessed the power of magnetism or even acoustic levitation. Yet no theory has ever fully explained how this one quiet man, working entirely alone, accomplished what should have required a large crew and heavy machinery. His story forces us to reconsider not just the how, but the who. If a single individual in the modern era could possess and then take such profound knowledge to his grave, what does that suggest about the lost techniques of entire ancient civilizations? This question becomes even more compelling when we look at the mathematical precision encoded in the very stones of an ancient temple half a world away. Across the Mediterranean, the ambition of megalithic construction reaches a scale that seems to defy the physical limits of human labor. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the ruins of the Roman temple of Jupiter at Baalbek stand upon a foundation that has baffled engineers for centuries. The temple itself is a marvel, but its grandeur rests upon something far more mysterious. Beneath the Roman columns lies a platform built from the three largest worked stones in human history, a trio known as the Trilithon. Each of these colossal limestone blocks measures over 62 feet long, with heights and widths of around 14 feet, and weighs an estimated 800 tons. To put that incomprehensible weight into perspective, it is heavier than two fully loaded Boeing 747 jetliners. Yet the true shock lies in the quarry, nearly a mile away from the temple complex. There rests the stone of the pregnant woman, an even more massive block left partially carved from the bedrock. It weighs an astounding 1,650 tons. The logistical nightmare of moving such a monolith is almost beyond modern comprehension. How do you transport a solid block of stone the size of a small apartment building across uneven terrain and then lift it precisely into place dozens of feet in the air? Even with our most powerful hydraulic cranes and heavy-duty transport vehicles, this would be a monumental, budget-busting engineering challenge. The Romans, master builders in their own right, are credited with the temples above, but many archaeologists question whether they were truly responsible for the foundational platform. The style of the colossal stones, their immense scale, and the lack of any clear Roman technology for such a feat has led to a compelling theory. Perhaps the Romans simply built their temple on top of a pre-existing and far more ancient megalithic site, constructed by a civilization whose identity and methods have been completely erased from history. The sheer organization required the thousands of workers, the sophisticated knowledge of leverage and friction. The perfect coordination implies a society with advanced engineering knowledge that was somehow lost for millennia. This display of raw megalithic ambition, moving mountains of stone across great distances, finds a strange and subtle echo in another part of the world, where the stones themselves seem to possess a hidden power. From the colossal ambition of Baalbek, we journey to the profound isolation of Easter Island, where nearly 900 stone giants stand in silent vigil. The Moai statues of Rapa Nui are among the world's most recognizable ancient wonders, yet their creation is overshadowed by an even greater puzzle: their transportation. These multi-ton figures were carved from volcanic tuff at a single inland quarry, then moved miles across the island's rugged, hilly terrain to massive stone platforms along the coast. Some of these statues stand over 30 feet tall and weigh more than 80 tons. How did a people with no wheels, no metal tools, and no large animals to provide draft power accomplish this feat, not just once but hundreds of times? The island's oral traditions speak of the Moai walking to their places by the sea, a poetic idea that was long dismissed as pure myth. Yet, experimental archaeology has brought this legend to life. Researchers have demonstrated that by using ropes to rock a statue from side to side, teams can indeed make a multi-ton Moai appear to walk forward in a shuffling, upright gait. This method is surprisingly efficient, requiring a relatively small crew and matching the wear patterns found on the ancient roads leading from the quarry. These roads are not flat but slightly V-shaped with carved patterns that could have served as grips for the walking motion, but this walking theory is fiercely contested. Critics argue that the process would have been incredibly risky, with a high chance of the statue toppling and shattering on the rocky ground. They also point to the island's fragile ecosystem, questioning whether there were ever enough large trees to provide the necessary ropes and to cushion the path, especially for the island's largest Moai, a colossus left unfinished in the quarry that would have weighed close to 200 tons. Alternative proposals suggest the statues were laid on log sledges and pulled, but this would have required vast quantities of timber and a smooth, prepared trackway, evidence for which remains elusive. The sheer scale of the operation reveals a society of immense cooperation and motivation, a culture that dedicated enormous resources to honoring its ancestors with these towering figures. Their very presence speaks of a complex, organized civilization whose ultimate decline, tied to ecological strain, adds a poignant layer of tragedy to the mystery. We are left to wonder what powerful belief could compel a people to move mountains, or at least their likeness, across the landscape. This deep understanding of stone and motion finds a parallel in a very different kind of precision, one measured not in miles but in millimeters. The Great Pyramid of Giza, as it stands today, is a stepped mountain of coarse stones, but this was never its original form. It was once a true geometric marvel, sheathed in over 5.5 million tons of brilliant white Tura limestone. These casing stones were not merely decorative slabs, they were engineering masterpieces in their own right, cut with such phenomenal accuracy that the joints between them were said to be thinner than a human hair, a mere 1/100th of an inch. From a distance, this would have created a seamless, mirror-like surface that gleamed under the Egyptian sun, a perfect pyramid visible for miles. How did Bronze Age artisans, working with copper chisels and stone hammers, achieve a level of flatness and squareness that rivals modern machining? The accepted explanation involves grinding the stones against each other with an abrasive slurry of sand and water, a painstaking process that could, in theory, produce a flat surface. Yet, this theory struggles to account for the sheer consistency and scale of the work. Each block was a precisely cut polygon, fitting perfectly not only with its neighbors on the same level, but also with the layers above and below, creating a stable, interlocking skin. This suggests the use of a master template or a sophisticated guiding system, perhaps a massive jig or frame, to ensure every single stone conformed to the grand geometric design. The obsession with this flawless exterior speaks to a purpose far beyond simple tomb building. It hints at a profound, almost sacred, understanding of geometry, light, and precision. If the methods were so straightforward, why has this specific, breathtaking quality of work never been replicated in such scale again in Egyptian history? The loss of this knowledge, the disappearance of the techniques capable of such perfection, is a silent testament to a skill set that seems to have vanished as completely as the pyramid's own shining skin. This drive for geometric perfection on a monumental scale is not unique to Egypt, as we find a similar, yet strangely different, obsession in the heart of the Cambodian jungle. Beneath the clear, blue waters off the coast of Japan lies a site that seems to belong in a sunken city of myth. The Yonaguni monument is a massive, terraced sandstone structure, a complex of sharp, right-angled platforms, steps that ascend like a staircase for giants, and towering pillars that look unmistakably carved. From the moment it was discovered, this underwater formation has been at the heart of a fierce and unresolved debate. Is this a purely natural wonder, sculpted over millennia by powerful tidal currents and seismic activity? Or is it the handiwork of a lost human civilization, submerged when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age? The debate is split between two compelling possibilities. On one side, geologists point to the region's active fault lines and the natural fracturing patterns of sandstone, which can create surprisingly flat surfaces and sharp angles. They argue that the entire structure could be a magnificent geological accident, but on the other side, researchers like Professor Masaaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus have spent decades surveying the site, and they see something profoundly different. They point to specific features that defy easy natural explanation. There are what appear to be twin pillars, standing side by side with a symmetry that nature rarely produces. There is a wide, open plaza and a platform that some describe as star-shaped, with precise angles that seem intentionally designed. perhaps most striking are the deep, cleanly cut trenches that run along the base of the main terrace, resembling the foundation channels of a massive building project. If even a portion of this structure is man-made, the implications are staggering. It would push the timeline of complex construction in Japan back over 10,000 years to a time known as the Jomon period. This was a culture previously recognized for its intricate pottery and hunter-gatherer lifestyle, not for monumental architecture or sophisticated seafaring. The Yonaguni monument suggests a society capable of planning and executing large-scale stonework, possibly on a par with the earliest pyramids. Its location, now 100 feet underwater, is itself a crucial clue. It places its creation squarely during the last glacial maximum, when sea levels were much lower and this area was dry land. This forces us to confront a haunting possibility that the coastlines of our world, which we see as permanent, are merely a snapshot in time, hiding the ruins of ancient settlements that were lost to the rising oceans. The mystery of Yonaguni pushes us to look more carefully at the line between nature and human artistry, a line that becomes even more blurred when we examine a site where the stones themselves seem to defy the very laws of physics. The world's oldest temple complex should not exist. At Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a hilltop sanctuary built around 9600 BCE shatters our timeline of human development. This was a time before farming, before pottery, before permanent settlements. According to traditional history, humans were small bands of nomadic hunter-gatherers focused solely on survival. Yet here, at the dawn of civilization, someone erected a breathtaking complex of stone circles, each defined by colossal, T-shaped limestone pillars. The largest of these monoliths stand 18 feet tall and weigh over 20 tons. How could a society that had not yet domesticated plants or animals muster the manpower, the resources, and the sheer organizational genius to quarry these giants, move them from a nearby bedrock, and raise them into perfect, deliberate arrangements? The carvings covering the pillars deepen the mystery. They are not crude scratches, but intricate, deeply etched reliefs of animals, a menagerie of foxes, scorpions, vultures, and lions. This is sophisticated symbolic art, a form of storytelling frozen in stone, created by people we assumed were incapable of such abstract thought and long-term planning. The labor required was immense, suggesting that hundreds of workers had to be fed and housed for extended periods, a feat that seems to demand some form of early agriculture to sustain them. This turns the standard theory of civilization on its head. We always believed that farming came first, creating a food surplus that then allowed for the specialization and leisure needed to build temples and develop complex culture. Göbekli Tepe implies the opposite, that it was the desire to build a sacred place, a collective spiritual project that may have forced hunter-gatherers to invent agriculture to feed the builders. The site's proposed alignments with celestial bodies hint at an even deeper knowledge, an ancient astronomy practiced when much of the world was still living in caves. This single site forces a humbling re-evaluation of our ancestors, revealing a lost chapter of prehistory where the drive to create something monumental may have been the very spark that ignited civilization itself. The precision of Göbekli Tepe's carvings finds a stark and expansive contrast on the plains of southern Peru. There, an entire landscape was turned into a canvas. The Nazca Lines are not monuments of stacked stone, but geoglyphs, enormous designs scraped into the dark desert pavement to reveal the lighter earth beneath. They form a gallery of giants depicting a hummingbird with a wingspan wider than a jumbo jet, a spider with legs that stretch for hundreds of feet, a monkey with a spiraling tail, and clean geometric shapes that run for miles in perfectly straight lines. The sheer scale is disorienting, for these images can only be seen in their entirety from high above the desert floor, a viewpoint the Nazca people themselves could never have physically achieved. This is the core of the puzzle. How did they create such accurate, massive artwork while standing firmly on the ground? The method itself was simple in concept, involving the careful removal of the sun-baked iron oxide-coated pebbles to expose the lighter-colored sand below. The preservation of these lines for over 2,000 years is a testament to the region's unique climate, one of the driest and most windless places on Earth, where a design once made could remain virtually untouched for centuries. But the planning and execution required an almost supernatural grasp of perspective and measurement. Archaeologists propose the Nazca likely used a system of ropes, stakes, and basic surveying principles. They could have created small-scale models and then scaled them up using a grid system, pacing out the proportions step by step across the desert. Yet, the flawless execution of long, arrow-straight lines and smooth, graceful curves that never waver across hills and valleys suggests a level of skill that pushes the boundaries of what we believe possible with such simple tools. Why did they go to such incredible effort? The theories are as vast as the drawings themselves. Some see a celestial calendar with the lines pointing to solstice sunrises or important star clusters. Others interpret them as sacred pathways for ritual processions, walked by priests to commune with the gods. There are more speculative ideas, like the notion they were landing strips for ancient astronauts, though this is widely dismissed by mainstream science. The most compelling answer may be that they were offerings, a desperate and magnificent plea to deities for the most precious resource in the desert, water. Many of the figures are associated with animals linked to rain or fertility in Nazca mythology. Whatever their purpose, the lines represent a colossal communal effort, a society so unified by a shared belief that they transformed their entire environment into a message, a prayer, or a map whose true meaning we are still learning to read. This act of imposing giant, meaningful shapes upon the earth from a ground-level perspective forces us to look at another ancient wonder, one that also manipulated a vast landscape to serve a purpose no one can quite agree upon. Rows of ancient stone soldiers march across the Breton landscape in a silent, sprawling army. This is the Carnac alignments, a megalithic phenomenon where over 3,000 standing stones were arranged in precise parallel lines, some stretching for miles. Erected over 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period, this was not a single project but a sustained cultural endeavor that spanned countless generations. The sheer coordination required is staggering. How did a society without written language or centralized power maintain a singular vision across centuries? The stones themselves vary from small, man-sized menhirs to colossal pillars weighing tens of tons, all quarried from local granite and somehow transported and erected into their perfect rows. The purpose behind this immense effort is the central enigma. Were these lines a colossal astronomical computer, their alignments pointing to the solstice sun or the movements of the moon? Some researchers have found correlations, suggesting the stones could have been used to predict eclipses or mark the seasons for an early agricultural society. Others see them as sacred pathways, defining a ritual landscape where processions moved between the rows for ceremonies now forgotten. Another theory posits they were territorial markers, a visible declaration of a clan's power and control over the land, a statement written in stone for all to see. Yet no single theory fully explains the overwhelming scale and the unmistakable intention behind the design. The true meaning is locked within a world we can no longer access, a deep cultural significance that resonates in the site's enduring presence. The logistics alone boggle the mind, demanding a level of social organization and engineering skill that seems to belong to a much later era. This profound mystery of purpose and placement finds a strange, inverted reflection in another part of the world, where the stones were not arranged in lines, but were instead chosen for their seemingly impossible acoustic properties. Deep in the humid jungles of Costa Rica, a different kind of perfection lies half buried in the earth. The stone spheres of the Diquis Delta are not towering monuments, but orbs of astounding geometric precision. Ranging from the size of a tennis ball to colossal spheres over 2 meters in diameter and weighing more than 16 tons, these man-made objects are almost perfectly round. Their surfaces are remarkably smooth, polished to a high sheen on granite, one of the hardest stones available. This is not the work of nature. The consistency across hundreds of these spheres points to a sophisticated, standardized technique mastered by a pre-Columbian society over 1,000 years ago. The central puzzle is twofold: how they were made, and more elusively, why. Using only other stones, perhaps hammerstones of even harder material like gabbro, and sand as an abrasive, artisans would have pecked and ground the raw boulder into a rough sphere. The final stages of polishing, achieving that flawless curvature, would have been an act of immense patience and skill, likely involving a rotating motion with abrasive materials over many months or even years for the largest examples. But the purpose behind such a colossal investment of labor is what truly captivates. Some researchers propose they were symbols of power and status, arranged in plazas outside the homes of chiefs. Others see an astronomical function, suggesting the spheres were positioned in patterns that mirrored constellations or marked celestial events. Tragically, we may never know for certain. Many of the spheres were moved from their original locations by 20th century plantation workers, destroying the very arrangements that could have been the key to their meaning. This loss of context turns each sphere into an isolated question. The sheer effort required to create them tells us they were of profound importance, a physical manifestation of a belief system or a cosmic order we can no longer decipher. This obsession with internal, hidden perfection in stone finds a parallel in a structure that is a geometric marvel on the inside, even as its outer form has been stripped away. Even the pyramid's most brilliant secrets are hidden from plain sight. While the external ramp theory has long been the standard explanation for how the Great Pyramid was built, it is plagued by staggering logistical flaws. The ramps needed to reach the pinnacle would have required more material than the pyramid itself, a mountain of earth and brick to build a mountain of stone, and their footprint would have been an engineering nightmare all on its own. This is where a revolutionary idea emerges, the theory of an internal spiral ramp, proposed by the French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin. This concept suggests the builders used a straight, external ramp only for the bottom third of the pyramid to establish its massive core. Then the real magic began. As the structure rose, the builders constructed a corkscrew ramp, a tunnel spiraling upward just inside the outer casing stones. This internal corridor would have allowed workers to drag stone blocks on sledges in a continuous, protected loop all the way to the summit. The system would have been incredibly efficient, using the pyramid's own growing structure as its support, eliminating the need for colossal external ramps that defied physics and practicality. But how did they navigate the tight corners? Houdin's model includes open notches at each of the pyramid's 4 corners, acting as internal turning bays where teams could pivot the heavy blocks before continuing their ascent. This elegant solution answers many of the old questions, yet it presents a new and profound challenge. How do you prove a theory that lies entombed within one of the largest structures on Earth? Non-invasive surveys using muon tomography, which is like a cosmic X-ray, have hinted at tantalizing voids and structural anomalies inside the pyramid that could be the ghostly imprint of this ancient ramp. But without physically breaking through the stones, the evidence remains circumstantial. a compelling ghost in the machine. The internal ramp theory also confronts one of the pyramid's most stubborn puzzles, the King's Chamber. This room houses enormous granite beams, each weighing over 50 tons, placed nearly 150 feet in the air. An internal ramp, while perfect for smaller blocks, seems an impossibly tight fit for these true megaliths. Did the builders use a separate, steeper ramp, or perhaps a sophisticated counterweight system operating through the pyramid's grand gallery? The method for lifting these beams remains one of ancient Egypt's most guarded secrets. Solving the riddle of the Great Pyramid's construction would be more than an academic triumph. It would be a revelation, forcing us to completely rewrite the story of ancient innovation. This quest to understand the methods of known builders leads us inevitably to ponder the origins of structures that have no known architects at all. A hidden world lies beneath the sun-baked plains of Cappadocia. Descending into the Derinkuyu underground city is like stepping into a vast subterranean fortress, an architectural labyrinth carved directly into the soft volcanic rock, or tuff. This was not a simple cave or a small shelter, but a multi-level metropolis capable of housing up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food stores, and even places of worship. The sheer scale is almost unimaginable, extending 18 stories deep into the earth, a vertical city designed for long-term survival. The engineering challenges this presents are immense. How do you provide fresh air for tens of thousands of people living in a sealed underground environment? The builders solved this with over 50 sophisticated ventilation shafts, each one meticulously engineered to draw clean air from the surface down to the deepest levels, while simultaneously expelling stale air, creating a constant, life-sustaining breeze throughout the entire complex. They also dug deep, reliable wells, tapping into the groundwater table to provide a source of water that was independent of the world above, making the city entirely self-sufficient during a siege. Security was engineered with brilliant simplicity. The entranceways were guarded by massive, rolling stone doors, each a single disc of rock weighing half a ton. These could be rolled into place from the inside, completely sealing off corridors and effectively trapping any invaders in a deadly bottleneck. Every detail was planned, from the network of narrow, easily defensible tunnels to the dedicated spaces for wine and oil presses, kitchens, and stables. While the city was certainly expanded during the Byzantine era as a refuge from Arab invasions, the initial construction phases remain shrouded in mystery, with some archaeologists arguing the first levels could be thousands of years older. The real puzzle is not just why it was built, but how. Excavating and stabilizing such an extensive network, ensuring ceilings would not collapse and tunnels would not cave in, required a profound understanding of geology and structural engineering. The builders had to know exactly how deep to carve, how to distribute weight, and how to leave strategic pillars of untouched rock to support the incredible weight above them, all without modern surveying tools or blueprints. This was urban planning on a grand scale, executed entirely in the dark. The very existence of Derinkuyu, kept secret for so long, suggests a society that had mastered the art of disappearing, turning the earth itself into both a shield and a home. It forces us to ask what other vast, hidden cities might still lie undiscovered beneath our feet, silent monuments to humanity's relentless will to survive. This urban genius did not emerge from the empires of the Mediterranean, but from the banks of the Indus River. Mohenjo-Daro, one of the world's first great cities, presents a puzzle not of a single monument, but of an entire civilization's foresight. Around 2500 BCE, this metropolis arose with a startlingly modern vision. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid pattern, a logical design that suggests a powerful, centralized authority with a master plan for urban living. But the true marvel lies beneath the surface. The city boasted an elaborate water management system, with wells providing fresh water to individual neighborhoods and a network of covered drains running alongside the main avenues. These were not open sewers, but carefully engineered brick-lined channels, designed with slopes to ensure waste was carried away from the homes and out of the city, a public health innovation that would not be seen again on such a scale for over 1,000 years. Even the building blocks of the city itself show a remarkable uniformity, with bricks cut to standardized, consistent ratios, as if mass-produced for an ancient public works project. The mystery only deepens when we ask who was in charge. There are no grand palaces, no colossal statues of kings, no evidence of a single, all-powerful ruler. The society that built this seems to have been organized in a way we can barely comprehend, perhaps governed by a council of elders or a priestly class that left no grandiose monuments to themselves. Their written language, a script found on thousands of small seals, remains completely undeciphered, locking away their history, their laws, and their very names. Then, around 1900 BCE, this thriving, orderly city was abandoned. The reasons are still debated, with theories pointing to climate change, a shift in the river's course, or possibly even invasion, though the lack of widespread evidence for violent destruction only adds to the confusion. Mohenjo-Daro stands as a haunting blueprint for a lost way of life, a society that achieved a level of civic planning and communal harmony that seems to vanish from the archaeological record as suddenly as it appeared. This raises a profound question: how many other sophisticated urban experiments have been lost to time, their blueprints erased by the very earth they were built upon? Deep beneath the rural villages of Zhejiang province, an entire hidden world was rediscovered by accident. In 1992, a local farmer decided to pump the water out of what he thought was a small, insignificant pond, only to reveal the entrance to one of the most baffling structural puzzles in the world, the Longyou caves. This was not a single grotto, but a vast, interconnected complex of 24 hand-carved caverns, covering an area of over 30,000 square meters. To stand inside one is to be enveloped by a scale that feels both immense and impossibly precise. Every surface, from the towering walls to the massive supporting pillars and the soaring, arched ceilings, is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, a deliberate, rhythmic design that covers every inch of the interior like a kind of ancient wallpaper. The sheer volume of rock removed to create this subterranean palace is almost beyond comprehension, an estimated 1 million cubic meters of solid sandstone. To put that in perspective, that is enough stone to fill 40 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Yet the first and most immediate question is, where did all that rock go? There is no massive spoil heap nearby, no ancient landfill, no trace of the debris that such a colossal mining operation would have inevitably produced. It simply vanished, as if the mountain itself was hollowed out and the evidence magically erased. The engineering itself is a marvel of consistency. The angles between the walls, pillars, and ceilings are perfectly sharp and uniform throughout the entire complex, demonstrating a master plan executed with unwavering accuracy. How was this achieved in near-total darkness, and with what tools? The parallel markings suggest the use of a specific, repetitive technique, but the tools capable of such a feat on this scale have never been found. This was far more than a quarry, for why would anyone go to the trouble of decorating every single surface with such care if the goal was merely to extract stone? The caves possess strange acoustic properties, where a single clap can resonate through the halls with a clear, resonant tone, suggesting the shape of the rooms was designed to manipulate sound. Patterns on the walls may hold symbolic meaning, but their code remains unbroken. With no mention of the caves in any historical record from any dynasty, they stand as a silent, monumental anomaly. They represent the work of thousands of laborers operating with a singular purpose that has been completely forgotten. This is not a forgotten chapter of history. It is a book that is entirely missing, leaving behind only these empty, echoing halls as a permanent question mark in the story of human achievement. Standing alone on the high Bolivian plateau, the Gate of the Sun is a 10-foot-tall monument of perfect solitude. Carved from a single, colossal block of andesite, this archway presents a surface alive with intricate art. A central, imposing figure, often called the staff god, stares out from the stone holding a vertical staff in each hand. Radiating from this deity are 48 smaller figures, 32 with human faces and 16 with condor heads, all appearing to run toward the center as if in a celestial procession. The entire composition is a complex low-relief carving, etched with a precision that seems to defy the available tools of the Tiwanaku culture. Andesite is an incredibly hard volcanic stone, a material that would quickly dull copper chisels. To achieve such fine, detailed work, the artisans must have employed a technique that is still not fully understood, perhaps using abrasive sand to slowly grind the designs over countless generations. The gate's current position only deepens the enigma. It stands apart from the main ruins of Tiwanaku, misaligned and isolated, leading many to believe it was moved from its original sacred location, a place where its true function could be realized. What was that function? The most compelling theory suggests it was a sophisticated calendar. The frieze is rich with symbolic imagery that appears to track celestial cycles. Some researchers argue the 48 figures represent a count that aligns with a lunar solar calendar, capable of predicting eclipses and marking the solstices. This would make the gate not just a beautiful artifact, but a monumental timekeeping device, a stone computer for an ancient priesthood. Yet, without a written record from the Tiwanaku themselves, the true meaning of the staff god and his procession remains a locked door. This solitary sentinel of a lost culture, with its silent, encoded message, compels us to look for other places where stone was used not just for construction, but for communication. The fortress of Ollantaytambo clings to a steep Peruvian mountainside, a masterpiece of imperial ambition and engineering audacity. Its most breathtaking feature is the Temple of the Sun, where 6 colossal slabs of pink porphyry stand fused together into a wall of impossible perfection. Each monolith weighs more than 50 tons, a weight comparable to a fully loaded semi-truck, yet they are fitted with seams so tight they seem to be a single, continuous piece of rock. The puzzle of their journey is as immense as the stones themselves. They were quarried from a mountainside on the opposite side of the Yorubamba River Valley, meaning they had to be dragged down one steep slope, hauled across a raging river, and then pulled up the near-vertical face of another mountain to their final resting place hundreds of feet above the valley floor. The accepted theory imagines an army of thousands of workers using earthen ramps, ropes of woven leather, and log rollers, inching each block forward through sheer, coordinated force. Yet this explanation feels incomplete when you stand before the wall. The precision of the polygonal masonry, where every interlocking angle is unique and perfectly carved, speaks of a technique that transcended brute strength. It is a stone puzzle engineered to be earthquake-proof, with each block locked in place by its neighbors, allowing the entire structure to sway and settle without collapsing. The mystery only deepens at the quarry, where other titanic stones, some weighing over 150 tons, lie abandoned along the transport route. These are known as the tired stones, and they tell a story of a project suddenly and violently interrupted. Was it the Spanish conquest that forced the Inca engineers to flee, leaving their tools and their ambitions scattered across the landscape? Or was it an internal crisis that halted one of the greatest construction projects of the ancient world? The silent, unfinished stones hold the answer, a permanent monument to a plan that was never finished. On the sun-drenched Maltese Islands, the Ġgantija temples stand as the oldest freestanding stone structures in the world, a title they held long before the Egyptian pyramids ever pierced the horizon. Their name, meaning Giant's Tower, hints at the local legends that credit their construction to a race of giants, a myth that feels almost justified when you stand before their colossal walls. These are not simple stone circles. The complex is a series of cloverleaf-shaped chambers built from massive blocks of coralline limestone. Some of these stones weigh over 50 tons, and they were stacked one upon the other to form soaring, concave walls that have endured for 5,500 years. The true marvel, however, is in the joints. The builders used no mortar whatsoever. The stability of these immense structures relies entirely on the perfect fit of one stone against another, a puzzle of polygonal masonry that has withstood millennia of Mediterranean weather and seismic shifts. How did a Neolithic society, one that had not yet discovered metal tools, achieve such a feat? The available tools were brutally simple, limited to stone balls, antler picks, and wooden wedges. The prevailing theory suggests that these artisans used a technique of heating the limestone with fire and then dousing it with cold water to cause it to fracture along desired lines. Then, with endless patience, they would have pecked and ground the surfaces together using sand and water as an abrasive, slowly wearing the stones down until they locked together with seamless precision. The organization required is another layer of the mystery. This was not a single project but a sustained cultural endeavor, demanding a surplus of food to feed a specialized workforce and a social structure capable of coordinating labor across generations. The interiors, now open to the sky, were once plastered and painted, suggesting a vibrant ritual life centered within these stone shells. The sheer durability of Ġgantija is a silent, powerful challenge to our assumptions about prehistoric technology. It forces us to ask what profound knowledge of geometry, balance, and material science was possessed by these early builders, knowledge that allowed them to create monuments that have literally withstood the test of time. This mastery of dry stone construction on a monumental scale finds a strange and inverted echo in a place where the stones were not fitted together, but were instead chosen for their unique, almost liquid properties. Yet within the confines of his strange coral garden, Edward Leedskalnin's ambitions may have reached for the stars themselves. Among his most tantalizing claims was the construction of a 9-ton Polaris telescope mount, an instrument he said could track the movement of celestial bodies with perfect accuracy. This was not just a block of stone, but a functional, precisely engineered device carved from solid rock. If his claim was true, it suggests he had moved beyond moving megaliths and into the realm of advanced astronomy and precision mechanics. The sheer leap in skill is staggering. A man with only a 4th-grade education, using salvaged metal and simple tools, would have needed to understand complex principles of polar alignment, rotational axes, and gearing, then translate that knowledge into a flawless stone mechanism. The device, now damaged and its true function obscured by time, stands as a ghost of this claim, its original capabilities impossible to verify. This pushes the mystery of Coral Castle into a new dimension. It is no longer just a question of how one man moved immense weight, but whether he secretly possessed and applied a sophisticated scientific understanding that seems completely out of place for his time and circumstances. Did he truly build a stone observatory, or was this the grand boast of an eccentric genius? The line between his verifiable achievements and his incredible claims is where the true enigma lies, forcing us to wonder what other forms of ancient technology might be hiding in plain sight, disguised as simple stone. A corroded bronze lump recovered from a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera held a secret that would rewrite history. When its calcified fragments were carefully examined, researchers found not a statue, but a complex clockwork of interlocking gears, a device now known as the Antikythera mechanism. Dated to around 100 BCE, this intricate assembly of at least 30 bronze gears is considered the world's first known analog computer. Its purpose was not to perform simple calculations, but to model the cosmos. By turning a hand crank, the user could advance a celestial calendar, predicting the positions of the sun and moon, the phases of the lunar cycle, and even the timing of solar and lunar eclipses. The device could also track the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. This was not a tool of superstition, but of sophisticated science, a mechanical representation of Hellenistic astronomical knowledge. The true puzzle, however, is not just what it did, but where it came from. The level of engineering is staggering. Tiny teeth were cut with precision into the bronze gears, and the entire system operated on complex mathematical ratios. One particularly brilliant gear even used a pin and slot mechanism to account for the moon's elliptical orbit, a subtlety of celestial mechanics that seems impossibly advanced for the era. This was miniaturization and mechanical complexity on a scale that would not be seen again until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe, over 1,000 years later. So where is the evidence of this technology's evolution? Where are the prototypes, the simpler models, the written plans? The mechanism appears in the historical record as a fully formed miracle, with no clear predecessors and no immediate successors. Its existence implies a lost tradition of Greek engineering and astronomy, a school of thought that perfected this technology only to have it vanish completely, perhaps lost in the fires of war or the collapse of empires. Who was the genius who designed it, and what other wonders of this Hellenistic scientific revolution have been lost to the sea or simply turned to dust? The Antikythera mechanism stands as a haunting reminder that technological progress is not always a straight line, and that peaks of human ingenuity can be forgotten, waiting for centuries at the bottom of the ocean to be discovered again. 21 of these structural puzzles forms a circle of stones that have journeyed farther than any other. The inner ring of Stonehenge is built from blue stones, a distinct type of spotted dolerite that geologists have traced back to the Preseli Hills in Wales. This quarry sits over 150 miles away from the Salisbury Plain. In the Neolithic era, moving dozens of stones, each weighing up to 4 tons, across such a vast and rugged distance seems an impossible task. The journey would have been a monumental logistical nightmare, requiring the coordination of hundreds of people across many months. How did they navigate dense forests, cross treacherous marshes, and ford powerful rivers? The prevailing theory suggests a combination of methods. On land, they may have used wooden sledges gliding over a track of greased logs, pulled by teams of people with strong ropes. For the water crossings, like the challenging Bristol Channel, the stones could have been lashed to rafts or even buoyant frames of animal skins, a perilous undertaking in cold, unpredictable waters. Yet every part of this theoretical route is fraught with risk and uncertainty. The sheer organizational genius required for this operation speaks of a society with a powerful, unifying purpose. This leads to the deeper mystery. Why go to such extreme effort? Why not use the abundant local sarsen stones for the entire monument? The answer may lie in the blue stones themselves. The Preseli Hills were an ancient sacred landscape, and the blue stones were believed to possess powerful properties, perhaps even healing energies. Recent archaeological work has uncovered evidence that people were chipping pieces off these stones for centuries, likely as talismans or for medicinal rituals. The builders of Stonehenge, then, were not merely transporting rock. They were on a sacred pilgrimage, physically bringing a piece of a holy mountain to their great temple on the plain. This was an act of deep spiritual significance, a deliberate long-distance quest that transformed the monument into more than an astronomical calendar. It became a repository of sacred geography, a place where the very stones were believed to hold the power of a distant, magical land. This seamless stonework was not just an artistic choice, but a profound engineering solution to a constant threat. The Andes Mountains are one of the most seismically active regions on the planet, shaken by frequent and powerful earthquakes. The very walls that look so impossibly perfect were designed specifically to survive them. Unlike a rigid wall of uniform bricks held together by mortar, which can crack and crumble when the ground shakes, the Incas built a dynamic system. Each irregularly shaped stone, with its multiple contact points and interlocking angles, was an individual component in a giant, three-dimensional puzzle. When an earthquake's tremors hit, the entire structure could sway and settle, the stones grinding against each other and redistributing the energy, then locking back into place once the shaking stopped. They were not fighting the Earth's movement, they were dancing with it. The mystery intensifies when we try to understand the process. How did they achieve such a perfect fit, stone after stone, with such apparent speed? The conventional explanation involves a technique of trial and error. Stonemasons would have shaped a block using harder stone hammers, then repeatedly tried to fit it into its designated gap, marking the high spots, grinding them down with abrasive sand and water, and trying again. It's a method that works in theory, but the time and labor required for just one block in a wall like Sacsayhuamán would have been enormous. To complete these monumental projects within a single emperor's reign, as history suggests they did, the process must have been far more efficient. Did they use soft metal or clay templates to transfer the complex shape of one stone onto the face of another? Or did they possess a more intuitive, almost uncanny understanding of geometry and spatial relationships, allowing them to visualize the final fit with minimal adjustment? Modern stonemasons, even with power tools and advanced measuring devices, find it incredibly difficult to replicate this polygonal masonry. It requires a level of foresight and tactile skill that seems to belong to a different kind of knowledge, one passed down through generations of master builders. The true genius of the Incas may not have been in a single secret tool, but in a collective intellectual prowess, a shared engineering philosophy that turned entire mountains into resilient, breathing architecture. Abandoned in the Aswan quarry, a single stone reveals the staggering ambition and the heartbreaking fragility of ancient engineering. The unfinished obelisk is a behemoth frozen in time, a 42-meter-long giant that would have weighed 1,168 tons if it had ever been freed from the bedrock. To stand beside it is to witness a project of almost unimaginable scale suddenly halted. The reason for its abandonment is etched into the rose-red granite itself, a network of critical cracks that appeared deep within the stone, flaws that would have caused the monolith to shatter during its final separation or during the perilous journey to its intended site. This colossal failure, however, is an archaeologist's dream, a perfect time capsule that preserves the entire quarrying process. The intended shape is perfectly clear, with workers having carved deep trenches around its perimeter, just wide enough for a person to stand in and swing a hammer. The methods they used were brutally simple yet remarkably effective. They pounded the granite not with metal but with dolerite stone balls, a rock even harder than granite, using a relentless hammering action to pulverize the stone along a predetermined line. For the final separation from the bedrock, they would have drilled a series of holes and driven soaked wooden wedges into them. As the wood expanded with water, it would generate immense pressure, cleanly cracking the stone along a straight line. This was a technique of immense patience and precise physics. The sheer scale of the labor involved is almost incomprehensible. Just to create the trenches around this one obelisk would have required the removal of thousands of tons of solid rock, all accomplished with these simple tools. The unfinished obelisk is a testament to both the breathtaking vision of the Egyptian builders and the stark reality of their technological limits. It shows us that their success was never guaranteed, that every perfect monument we see standing today was a victory snatched from the very real possibility of catastrophic failure. This single stone teaches a profound lesson that the greatest ancient wonders are not just symbols of what they achieved, but also haunting reminders of what they almost lost. A single shaft of light once held the power to wake the dead. At Newgrange in Ireland, a 5,000-year-old passage tomb guards a secret not of darkness, but of illumination. Above its main entrance, a narrow, rectangular opening was carefully built into the structure, a feature known as the roof box. For most of the year, it sits dormant, a simple stone-framed slit. But for a few precious days around the winter solstice, something magical happens. As the sun crests the horizon on the shortest day of the year, a thin, brilliant beam of light pierces through this roof box. It travels down the long, dark passageway, a corridor that leads deep into the heart of the mound, and for approximately 17 minutes, it floods the central burial chamber with a golden glow. This was no happy accident. The alignment is too perfect. The builders had to possess a deep, long-term understanding of the solar cycle, observing the sun's slow migration along the horizon for generations to know exactly where it would rise on that specific morning. They then had to translate that celestial knowledge into stone and earth, engineering the entire 62-foot-long passage with a precise upward slope so the distant dawn light would reach the chamber floor. The roof box itself is a masterpiece of miniature architecture, with its massive overhead slab perfectly positioned to act as a baffle, preventing light from spilling in at the wrong times and ensuring that only the solstice sun could perform its annual miracle. The puzzle is not merely one of engineering but of profound intent. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? This was more than a calendar. In a time of growing cold and darkness, the rebirth of the sun was a moment of supreme spiritual power. The ability to capture that light, to bring it into the realm of the ancestors, suggests a belief system where the sun was a divine force that could be harnessed to renew life, perhaps even to guide the spirits of the dead. This 17-minute spectacle, repeated for millennia, stands as a silent testament to a Neolithic mind that saw the cosmos not as a distant mystery, but as a force to be woven directly into the landscape of the living and the dead. Beneath the sands of Egypt, another secret was carved not upward toward the sun, but down into the cool, silent earth. The Temple of Hathor at Dendera is famous for its celestial ceiling, but its true enigma lies hidden below. A sprawling network of tunnels and crypts winds deep beneath the temple foundation, their walls a canvas of intricate hieroglyphs and the so-called Dendera light reliefs. These carvings show massive, bulb-like objects, with what appear to be cables and snakes writhing inside them, held aloft by towering figures. While mainstream Egyptology interprets these as symbolic depictions of a spiritual journey or the birth of a sacred snake from a lotus flower, the imagery is so visually specific it has sparked alternative theories of ancient electrical technology for decades. Yet the real structural puzzle is not just what is carved on the walls, but the walls themselves. Who built this subterranean labyrinth and for what purpose? The tunnels are a marvel of precise engineering, carved through solid rock with clean lines and smooth surfaces. But their design is deeply strange. Some passages are so narrow they would have been a tight squeeze for a single person, while others open into small, claustrophobic chambers. This was not a space designed for grand processions or public ceremony. The effort involved was immense, requiring workers to excavate tons of rock in near-total darkness, all while meticulously decorating every surface with sacred art. The sheer investment suggests these crypts were of paramount importance to the temple's function, a hidden, sacred heart. Were they ritual spaces for the most secretive initiations where priests accessed the underworld? Could they have served as a protected library for sacred texts or a secure vault for divine objects? The narrowness of the passages might have been a deliberate feature, forcing any supplicant to crawl or contort their body in a physical act of humility before the gods. The combination of such deliberate, difficult construction with its mysterious, sealed-away purpose adds a profound dimension to our understanding of Egyptian architecture. It reveals a culture that did not just build for the world of the living, but invested equally in the hidden, symbolic world beneath their feet, leaving behind a darkness so carefully carved it feels like a question in itself. A single slab of limestone weighing more than 20 tons crowns the entrance to the ancient citadel of Mycenae. This is the Lion Gate lintel, a structural triumph that has guarded the city of the legendary Agamemnon for over 3,000 years. Its placement is the central puzzle, a feat of late Bronze Age engineering that seems to contradict the very style of the walls it rests upon. The Mycenaeans were masters of what we call Cyclopean masonry, building with colossal, irregular boulders that were roughly fitted together, a technique so massive it was later believed only the mythical Cyclopes could have moved such stones. Yet the lintel is different. It had to be perfectly level and impeccably balanced, for any significant tilt or settlement would have caused the entire gateway to collapse under its own immense weight. So how did they lift this multi-ton block dozens of feet into the air and position it with such exactitude? The prevailing theory involves an ingenious use of earth and leverage. Builders likely constructed a massive earthen ramp against the unfinished wall, dragging the stone slowly upward on log rollers using ropes and raw human power. Once it reached the desired height, they would have painstakingly maneuvered it onto the stone supports, probably using wooden levers to make the final, minute adjustments before gradually dismantling the ramp from below. The sheer coordination and understanding of physics this required is staggering, but the mystery does not end with its placement. Perched atop this engineering marvel is the gate's namesake, a breathtaking relief sculpture of two towering lionesses facing a central Minoan-style column. Their heads, now lost, were once made of a separate material, perhaps gleaming metal, and would have turned to face those who approached. This is not mere decoration. It is one of the earliest examples of monumental sculpture in all of Europe, a powerful statement of authority and divine protection. The lionesses symbolize the raw power of the Mycenaean rulers, a warlike culture whose influence stretched across the ancient world. The gateway, therefore, is a perfect fusion of brute strength and sophisticated artistry, a symbol of a civilization capable of both horrifying violence and breathtaking cultural achievement. Its enduring presence is a permanent question, challenging our perception of this so-called heroic age and the true extent of its lost engineering knowledge. These 26 puzzles are not scattered, disconnected mysteries. They form a pattern, a map of human ingenuity that shows peaks of knowledge rising and then vanishing from history. Each structure represents a sophisticated, context-dependent solution, an engineering philosophy perfectly adapted to its environment and purpose. The Incas developed their dynamic, earthquake-proof polygonal masonry to survive the Andes. The Egyptians perfected their laser-like casing stones to create a perfect geometric form for eternity. The builders of Göbekli Tepe organized a pre-agricultural society around a spiritual need so powerful it may have sparked civilization itself. These were not random acts of brute force. They were the products of intense cultural focus, where entire societies channeled their resources, their brightest minds, and generations of labor into a single, monumental goal. The knowledge required was deep, often passed down through oral traditions and apprenticeships, a living library of technique that was never written down. And this is precisely why it could disappear so completely. When a society collapses, when an empire is conquered, or when the religious imperative that drove the construction fades away, that living library can be burned in a single generation. The specific need for moving 1,000-ton stones or carving perfect spheres vanishes, and with it, the irreplaceable knowledge of how it was done. We are left with the stones themselves, not as proof of alien intervention or lost super-civilizations, but as evidence of the incredible diversity of human innovation. They remind us that progress is not a single, straight line leading to our modern world. It is a tree with many branches, some of which grew to astonishing heights, only to be pruned by time, leaving behind these silent, stone stumps for us to ponder. These 26 structural puzzles weave together a human history far richer and more intricate than any single narrative could ever capture. They are not a collection of random anomalies, but a testament to a global tapestry of ingenuity, woven by cultures that solved monumental problems with a brilliance that still leaves us speechless. From the shattered, laser-cut stones of Puma Punku to the sun-drenched chamber of Newgrange, these enigmas are not failures of understanding, but triumphs of the human spirit. They are permanent monuments to the determination and profound knowledge of our ancestors, built with a wisdom that challenges our most basic assumptions about the timeline of progress. We are forced to reconsider what ancient people were truly capable of, not with magic or outside help, but with their own sharp minds and coordinated hands. The fact that we cannot easily replicate their work does not point to our inadequacy, but to the vast and diverse landscape of human innovation, much of which has been lost to the silent erosion of time. Yet this is not a story with a closed ending. With every new archaeological dig, every advance in technology like ground-penetrating radar and muon tomography, we peel back another layer. The secrets held within these stones are not permanent. They are simply waiting for the right key. Let these enduring mysteries inspire not frustration, but a deeper, more humble curiosity about the sprawling, shared epic of our past. If these 26 puzzles can so thoroughly reshape our understanding, what other wonders still lie buried beneath the sand, the jungle, or the waves, patiently waiting for their moment to be discovered? We would love to hear which of these archaeological puzzles captivates you the most. Share your favorite in the comments below, and if you are eager for more journeys into the unknown, be sure to subscribe.